Hello? Can you hear
No,
me?
that's much better.
Is
Yes,
that
I've
all
got it
right?
this time.
That's okay.
Great.
Okay. Well, yeah, my head's very big. Not much we can do about that.
Right. I can come further forward. Oh,
I can't get back any further. It's my
no?
webcam. It's just set up like that.
Oh, right.
It doesn't matter really.
What happened there?
That's,
Yeah, okay. I'll just try a minute. Just 1 minute.
that'll do. When you're on your own on the screen,
Yeah.
you can zoom in on you. It'll only be when I've got the two screens I can't adjust the relative sizes.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let me get my notes. Okay. So, have you got your meme of the week ready?
My themes of the week. Yes.
Meme of the week.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because I'm going to ask you. That's the first thing I'll ask you.
Okay.
And the way it'll go is I'll do just a short introduction.
Okay.
I'll introduce you. Then I'll ask you later your meme of your meme of the week, and I will put up on screen. You can just describe it as if we can see it, and then I'll put it up on screen for the final edit. And then I will do the editorial. So I'll just talk through that briefly. And then we'll go on to your first item, which is the Boris hoax. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So with the theme of the week, I wasn't sure. You don't mean one of the stories. You mean the
Meme.
theme.
Yeah.
Meme. Oh, the meme. No. Sorry, it was my hearing. Yeah. Okay. I've got that. That's everyone enjoying their free 30-day trial. Yeah.
Okay, that's good because I didn't choose that one. And you've got your crystal ball reading ready.
Well, yes. I've got my mind on what to do. Yeah.
That was pretty easy for you. You just looked in Revelations.
No.
Okay, right. All right, we'll start now. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. This is the first edition of a brand new program that we call What the Alternative Papers Say. Now, it's going to be very much on the lines of what the papers say, except we are only going to be looking at alternative papers. Now, a little problem with that is that there aren't very many alternative papers. In fact, there's only one. When there are more, we'll be looking at those. But at the moment, we have to look at the single one there is, which is Chronicle of the Times. Now, Chronicle of the Times has not yet gone into print. It can't because of the notorious lockdown, which is preventing so many things from happening. So we can't actually print the paper and distribute it freely on the streets of London, which will happen. But what we can do is print an electronic version, and that will be available, and you'll see some links on the YouTube screen underneath the main screen. Now, this program, What the Alternative Papers say, is going to operate as a kind of adjunct to the paper, and we will be discussing stories, and I will be inviting various guests to come along and help me look at the paper and discuss and criticize what the stories say. Now, just to tell you briefly, the origin, the idea of what the papers say.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
All right.
Right. Okay.
No, it's not okay. I can't see you.
No. I know it's not. Hold on. Right. Okay. Do we need to do that again? I'm sorry. It shouldn't happen now.
No, because I'll cut you out.
No. Okay. Okay.
I'll go on from where I was and slice out that bit. But the basic idea behind Chronicle of the Times is that there is a need for an alternative print newspaper, because print But one thing, it has authority, even though a lot of the stuff that goes into print is complete rubbish. But just by being in print, it does have authority. And the other thing is, print is very convenient. When you get on a train, if you've got a newspaper, you've been looking at a screen all day. So what a surprise and what a change to be able to read a bit of print, particularly when it's not the normal, normal mainstream newspaper that we're all so used to. Now, the way the model will work is that there will be no adverts. There's no influences on the paper, so it will be relying on donations. And so you'll be able to see the links to that as we go along. And so here we are, we'll get into the program, what the ALT papers say. And this is a little feature that we will have. That might sound a bit BBC-ish, but we're going to have a feature every day where myself and the guests are going to choose one of the memes from the paper, because we have a lot of memes in the newspaper. We rely on the internet for a lot of the content, and there's a lot of memes out there, and some of them are really rather good. So we put them in the paper, and we're just going to look at what we think are the best ones from this week's edition. And so with that, I would like to introduce my guest today, who is Sam Hill, who lives in Hemel Hempstead in Britain. And Sam is going to just tell us about, well, first of all, let's say hello to Sam. Hello, Sam.
Hello. Nice to meet you, Peter.
Well,
and I really admire your work. It's much needed in these times.
And nice to meet all the viewers who are out there who would be interested in what you have to say. So could you just tell us which meme you have chosen this week?
Well, for me, it has to be the very back page, which says it all, really. Is everyone enjoying their free 30-day trial of a totalitarian world government? So for me, it says everything.
Yes, yes. Well, I think that's an ongoing theme that we're going to be reliving for quite a while. Well, my favorite one is I've chosen just because it is so simple and blunt, and it's a picture of a soldier on, let me just find it, on page 4, and he's glaring into the camera, and he's just saying, just sitting here watching the world go full retard. And that is just so simple, and it's absolutely, I think, how a lot of us feel. So that's the one that I've picked out. Okay, now we're going to move on to discussing articles in the Chronicle of the Times. And I'm going to start by talking about the editorial, which of course, as editor and founder, I wrote myself. And what is, I say, first of all, it might seem a rather bizarre time to actually launch this new print newspaper. But we have to get it going, and so we do the best we can under this awful lockdown. I think the idea of waiting for the lockdown to stop before we begin to print would be a mistake, because like a lot of us think that it's going to go on a very long time. And this is really quite an historic period. I mean, I feel for the first time that you know, I feel that life is changing quite radically now. I'd love to be wrong about that, but I think that the politics that we are now experiencing is something we've never seen before. This COVID crisis, so-called, which is being imposed upon us, and the lockdown, which is supposed to fix the flu virus, or it's supposed to fix the current flu virus, which to me and many others seems like just any other flu virus. I think to use that to impose such enormous draconian measures on the people of the UK, and of course it's happening all over the world, and on the businesses, the wreckage is just really impossible to gauge. You cannot state the damage that is going to be done. That is very different. And what that makes a lot of us think that there is a force in the world that is putting its head above the parapet and is stepping right into the political arena. It's always been there, at least for a long time. And now it's coming full on and influencing the politics. And this force is what we normally call the New World Order, which is a project. Now, I'm not going to explain it all now. A lot of you will be familiar with it, but that's a theme that Chronicle of the Times will be returning to constantly. But basically, it's an idea that was started or came to the fore in the early part of the 20th century in Britain. People always talk about it as a world project. The New World Order implies it's a new world order, and it works a lot through the United Nations. But in fact, the core countries that are creating it and driving it and see it as their baby project are the Atlantic countries, US, UK, and France. Those are the core countries that see themselves as ruling the world under this new order that they want to create. And it was started at the beginning of the 20th century by a group in London, people backed by a lot of money from certain individuals and certain banks. And they were able, they wanted to push Britain forward. The British Empire was at the height of its supremacy then, and they saw that as the foundation for having a truly global control or global order. And in order to do that, what they had to do was get rid of the two countries that were the biggest powerful countries standing in their way, Germany and Russia. So to cut a long story short, what they did was they engineered behind the scenes the First World War, which effectively achieved their aims. They did actually reduce Germany, which was becoming very powerful. They reduced Russia, which was becoming very powerful, and they left the world clear for the operation of the New World Order. And so just to finish up this editorial point, COVID is just a part of this process. And this is absolutely important to understand, that it's not just an isolated event. That's what they want you to believe, that history has no pattern, that there was the First World War, the Second World War, there was 9/11, there was the wars in Iraq and other countries, there's now COVID-19. They want you to believe that these are all isolated events and there's no connection. But there is a connection, and it's this story of creating the New World Order, which, as I say, we will return to and elaborate on, I'm sure, in other articles in the paper. So that's all I want to say for the moment. And now I would like to hand over to Sam to take us through one of the articles in Chronicle of the Times, which is an article, what's the title?
Coercion, Boris Johnson's psychological attack on the UK public.
Right. So it's bang on the nail for the subjects that are in everybody's mind at the moment. So Sam, could I hand over to you, please?
Hi, well, I've been reading the article. It's fascinating, from Mike Robinson, to do with how that they're repurposing government like a well-oiled propaganda machine. I don't know how far we're going to be expected to take this new normal of the New World Order without questioning it, because we're becoming, as a public, a lot wiser, and they're becoming a lot more concerned with censorship. Even to the degree I heard today on Facebook, they want to ban people who protest against the virus from Facebook. So all these measures are very manipulative measures, not something that you'd normally see in a free nation. It sort of strikes as sort of heading towards some kind of martial law police state at one extreme. But we'll have to see whether things lift and whether things change afterwards, you know, because these are the worst fears, you know, that might not be realised, or maybe they will, because, you know, the state becoming very much more power hungry to carry out its agenda. Yeah, I find it fascinating. It's the use of the words we'll meet again, be alert, sort of trying to stir up a wartime feeling. Yeah, when Prince William was caught on camera talking to somebody, he was describing how he thought it was all a little bit overrated. All in It Together was started on the 17th of April. It's a 3-month joint combination between, you know, this propaganda machine, the state, and the newspaper, the press, the UK press. And so it's providing a very, very meticulous machine to instill fear, because we're not being allowed to have any sense of choice. And I would like to read a passage or two from this connected to it all, which I shall do, which really proves the mechanisms being used here are quite unheard of. Increasing the public compliance with social distancing. On the 22nd of March, in preparation for a SAGE meeting to be held the following day, SPIB published a document entitled Options for Increasing Adherence to Social Distancing Measures. What are the options for increasing adherence to social distancing measures? It asks. It considers the 2 social distancing measures to be seen the most important were general social distancing by everyone and shielding of vulnerable people for at least 12 weeks. There are 9 broad ways of achieving behavioural change, they write. Persuasion, education, coercion, enabling, training, restriction, environmental restructuring and modelling, persuasion and coercion again. The advice given is immediately aggressive. A substantial number of people still do not feel sufficiently threatened, they write. They perceive the level of personal threat needs to be increased among those who are complacent, using hard-hitting emotional messaging. In other words, they recommended to SAGE that the levels of fear needed to be increased in order to bring levels of compliance with so-called lockdown up to desirable levels. To be effective, they continue, this must also empower people by making clear the actions they can take to reduce the threats. Here, what they're saying is very clear, that it can't be left to the individual to decide which actions are appropriate. They have to be told. So I'll leave it there for now. It's quite an indictment.
Yes, indeed. I think there's so much crazy manipulation going on, and I've watched BBC recently, which of course is not a very good idea for your sanity. And what they do constantly is push the idea that the measures aren't enough. So that's their story. Their story, they need a problem to have a story. And what we would think to make the problem is the problem that the measures are far too much and they're destroying people's lives. But their story is, are they going to work? That's how they make the story. And they have a lot of experts to discuss it. And of course, never, ever an alternative view and a lot of duff statistics. Okay. Sam,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to cut there, and we're going to do a set. Because I've got the free version, I can only do 45 minutes.
Okay.
You see, so what we'll do is that I'm afraid they're just going to finish the meeting abruptly. Yeah. So it's better to cut it, and when I'll be able to splice it all together. Okay, so we'll cut that, we'll finish the meeting, and I'll set up a new one and invite you.
In where? Sorry?
I will set up a new meeting,
yeah,
and invite you again as before.
Got it. Yeah, that's what I thought you said. All right then, good.
Okay.
Bye.